enjoy coming back to West Columbia, maybe once a year. Next year we don't plan to come home, so we'll see you in 2018, if not before. But God is good. Yesterday we had a meal midday with my class of 58. There were 20 of us. More than, it's 50 years before I saw some of them. And yesterday I saw one or two hadn't seen in 58 years since we graduated. Aren't these wonderful times when you've got email and communications where you can find out where people are that have been lost? And so it's great to be with you in this church. So I did put out some calendars. This just sort of came to us, and our daughter Melody in Colorado took on this job, and she put together a 50-year calendar. We started in 1966 itinerating, getting our support, and it was 49 years ago this month that we went to Africa. So we've been in full-time missions for 50 years, and really never really thought about it. But we made it 50, maybe we can make it to 60. Anyway, we're not going to stop. Anyway, that's how wonderful we look 50 years ago. So, you kind people that every time we come home you say, you and Shirley never change. Wonder if you're honest. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. I want to share with you this morning, and there are some of these laying out in the vestibule. So if you would like to have one, every month you turn it, you can pray for it. It shows, we've got this Ralph and Shirley Hagemeier because it's 50 years for us, but Stephanie has been in Congo working this month 30 years. Wow. And she came out for a visit and never left. Well, there were some teams in years gone by, they would say, teasing her, said, oh, we need to bring some singles out here on these. She knew what they were talking about. Said, well, make sure they're planning to stay. So she hadn't been home in 4 years. We've been trying to talk her into coming back for a break. Well, maybe next year. So anyway, we're enjoying the work of God and glad for our family that's also involved in God's work. Amen. We didn't plan it. We didn't plan their lives for them. And I tell people this is a God thing. When we were in East Africa and they would go to boarding school, well, we sort of got used to that. They're gone, and every fourth month they're home. And at first, Shirley and I we're encouraging them, be strong. You're going to like this. You're going to have a lot of friends. And all the way back to Nairobi, 45 minutes, Shirley, we're out. No words. Well, we got over it. But it was more difficult in 1985 when they were through college and on their own. And I broke all my rules one day. We were with Melody in her apartment. She was a nurse in a hospital in Tulsa, and sat down and played at the piano and sang, and then we both broke down. It's nice every once in a while we can break down. But you can't make a practice of it. You got to stay strong. It's like when wars are going on, and somebody comes to your house and the rebels are going to be here tomorrow morning. What are you going to do? Nothing. I guess we'll just stay right here. Well, sometimes you have to be strong in spite of the situations. And I'm very grateful to God that we were there during the war, because we were able to help a lot of people. One Arab Muslim asked me one day, he said, are you leaving? I said, I don't plan to. He said, well, if you do, I am. So you might be able to help some Arab Muslims if you just stay strong in God, and they'll see that God's on our side. I've got a lot I want to say. You're going to have to be quick listeners. I'm glad to see my nephew here, Garrett, and I see he's keeping good company. And James Mitchell, you know, James Mitchell and I were here together when I was still in high school. And I'd stop by where he was with E. Smith, and we worked on correspondence courses, a book by E.W. Kenyon. So it's nice, even in high school, you can start studying the Bible. I was going to be an engineer, but I'll share that briefly with you in a minute. I was born here in West Columbia 76 years, 4 months, and 8 days ago. Less than a mile from here on Bernard Street. And that building's no longer here. I was born again, and I didn't keep a diary, so I don't know hour and day and all of this, but it was about the month of May, 62 years ago. Wow. And my dad had started going to the church. I started going with him down on 12th and Bernard. It wasn't 12th and Bernard. It was a few blocks this side until they built that new building. But I was saved there 62 years ago at the age of 14. Went through high school, and I can say 58 years ago. This is how I was called, and I think I've shared this with you a few years ago, but since they're new people and forgetful people, I'll repeat. I thought I was going to be an engineer, and I graduated, and we had a missionary guest from a missionary to Mexico, and he preached on go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. I rationalized, I don't care if you accept that or not, it's still good 58 years later. And some people, if you tell them about the vision you had or a dream or something spectacular, they'll hook up. I've just been trained on believing God's word. Anyway, I heard that message and I thought, God said it, I want to do it, He won't turn me down. So when I went to Bible college, give your testimony. I'd give my, no, that's not good enough. You can't just decide because somebody preached that you're going to, what if everybody did that? Well, everybody didn't do that. So, anyway, 2 months later, before I departed, Africa. Nothing more than that, but inside somewhere, Africa. So I've been pursuing Africa, and I was taught that you need to go to Bible college 4 years, and you need to marry, have 2 children, no more. That's the ideal missionary family, so they suggested. It saves on airfare and boarding school. Anyway, I just did everything, and then you're supposed to pastor. I assisted my pastor here for 1.5 years, and then I was called to West Texas, so we felt it was in the will of God, and I wanted to do all the qualifications, and then 65, I was ordained last year in my West Texas district. I got my 50-year pin, 50 years of ordination. I want you to honor me. I wear my pin around when we're in district councils and stuff. So then I filled out the forms, and 50 years ago, it's actually last month, April 1966, we're in district council in Pampa, and we had no missionaries from our district at home at that time. So Brother Metzger was our district mission secretary, and he got up and he said, we don't have any of our missionaries home this year, but these kids, pointing to Shirley and Ralph, these kids are ready to go. So they raised our fare, freight, and duty. And then they started making pledges for monthly support. And then when I met them, I resigned my church in May. And so I met the committee. We were invited to Springfield, Missouri. around that long table, you know, one of the first things they said, now don't resign your church yet because the board that approves you don't meet until July. I said, we've already resigned and moved. So we're down here and started our itinerary 50 years ago. God is good. God is good. We talk about budgets, and I won't try to go into this to explain it, but I got to realizing some time ago, I've never been under a budget. First time they gave me a budget, I raised it, and I left in May. May 21st, 1 week from yesterday, we have two celebrations. Our granddaughters, Vicky and Mati, so they were born on May 21st, 1991. Well, we arrived in Africa May 21st, 1967. So Saturday we'll be celebrating those two celebrations. But God helped us. But when I got there, one missionary showed me, let me see your budget. So he's looking and he said, they forgot to put this in there and that in there. Too late now, I can't go back. And somebody, you know, people will always encourage you in the wrong way. I said, now remember, Ralph, when you go out for 4 years, the last year people will tend to forget you. Our income increased the last year, our first term, the last year, our second term, the last year, our third term. So God doesn't forget you. Amen. And we haven't come to raise a budget. Don't have one. Your pastor's on our board, so he knows. I don't present it anymore because it's an impossibility. The only figure that has ever come to us, I walked in his office one morning, Midland, Texas, in February 1985, and he said, Ralph, you won't believe this, but this morning when I was praying, God said, I heard him say 100. I thought he was going to say 100,000. I could have handled it, but he said 100 million. Wow. So I responded like he said. No, I don't believe that. And I laughed like Sarah. You know, I'm 90. I can't have a baby. And I preached about Abraham and Sarah for many years, but now I realize there's something there for me. Please, Shirley, don't tell me you want to have a baby again. We're enjoying our grandchildren, and now in July we'll have our third great-grandson. Wow. So God just keeps helping us. And I'm so comfortable in a situation where I know there's nothing that I can do. So, I said to a friend some years ago, I said, we're going to have to start trusting God. He said, have we got that bad? Well, we should never quit trusting God. So, God called us. We responded. And now, looking back, we can tell about 50 years, not of ministry. I've been in full-time ministry 55 years. But 50 years in full-time missions ministry. Now I want to share, I didn't plan to preach, and so let me just give you a little scripture, and then I'm going to talk some more about what we're doing in Africa. You probably don't know what we're doing in Africa. I'm not a Reinhard Bonnke. I'm not a Billy Graham. I'm just me. Amen. And God gave me something to do, and that's what I'm doing. And I love it. I like where I am. I brought this because I like the way the NIV renders Psalm 10, verse 2. If I back up to verse 1, I thought, man, reading this sounds like Habakkuk when he starts his little book, you know, complaining to God. And, hey, God, how come you're not doing something about the situation we have here in the United States of America? Why, O Lord, do you stand far off? We miss it the same way. He's not far off.
Amen.
Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? He's never hidden himself at any time. Certainly not in times of trouble. Well, let me go to verse 2. Here's the situation that he's in. In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak, who are caught in the schemes he devises. We're living in that day.
Yeah.
I want to back up to when I was 12 years of age. My dad had a store a few blocks down here, the main part of town. And next door, Mr. Frazier had a building. He had a steam laundry business. They worked Monday through Friday, but on Saturday, they didn't work. So at times I have older brothers, so some of us younger ones would sit in there just so if customers came in, we could give them their packaged laundry. So I don't know, but it was before I saved, so I'm guessing I was about 12 years of age. I didn't know much about anything. But I'm sitting in here. Of course, my dad's door is just a stone's throw from there. But I'm saying this morning because you have children, you have grandchildren. We're in a day in which I leave them alone. They're not bothering anybody. Oh, yes, they are.
No.
You need to read up on it. They're aggressive. And it's like, well, yeah, they're not hurting anybody. I'm still speaking. I was about 12. And I'm sitting in there and this older man, you know when you're 12, even if you're in your 40s, you think they're 60-something. I just remember he looked old. Forgive me for my speech, but we got to live with the time in which we live now. Here's a man he sat down there and started talking to me across the counter about, I could take you and massage you and give you a rub down and all kind of stuff like this. Some minutes, and in my ignorance, I'm sitting there thinking, what in the world is this guy talking about? Looking back on those years, I realized he must have been homosexual. And I've read testimonies of others, they just get trapped one time. You go along with somebody, if you don't know better, if you're not taught better, well, thank God I'm not a homosexual. Never gone that way, thought that way. But I'm just telling you what might have been. Yeah. We think about what could have been, what might have been, what should have been. The wicked man hunts. It's a few years back I was reading about somebody, a movie star. They caught him. He was in a public facility. There's a certain word, and I looked it up in the dictionary, but now I've lost it. I can't even remember enough to find it. But it's like there's a certain word, they just go and they're hunting, just like the Bible says here. They're just in search of somebody that can be their victim. And I don't understand it, but it's like, I remember we had a lady minister here years ago, and she just sort of hated her father because he was a drunkard. And fortunately, she was saved, filled with the Spirit in the ministry, and had to come to the point where she forgave him. But there are some, you've read about it, and they hate some things so much that they do the very thing they hate.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's happened. I've read some of their testimonies. Someone is abused, we call it. And I don't know, maybe they decide in later times they're going to take it out on somebody else. So the cycle just never stops. thank God it can stop before it ever gets started.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I remember telling a friend one time about, we had an evangelist in that old church. But I remember him telling about when he was selling insurance, how much money he made, but he left it all, and started preaching the gospel. And I told this friend, I said, I don't have a testimony like that. I never made lots of money. He said, we left it before we got started. So I left those millions that I could have made, and I followed the Lord, and I've been very content with my wages. It's amazing. That's why we're singing, little is much when God is in it.
Yeah.
We're still building buildings. We're still helping churches.
Yeah.
I got a line of credit in my bank in Pueblo a few years back. And they go through all your information and everything. And then they send me this, there's a lot of papers in there. And I don't know much about American ways, but hear people talking about your credit scores. I looked at mine. I'm in one of the highest categories, not the highest number, but as they categorize it, I'm in the top category. I laugh. I have $300 in my savings account, and I'm in the top because I've always paid my bills. I've always paid them on time. I've taken steps by faith, but not by foolishness. And every time, sometimes you have to be careful where you share what God has done, because some people want to mimic you instead of following God. You follow God, you'll have your own testimony. This is mine, not yours. You mimic the Holy Ghost. I'll just share one thing. 2 years ago, I'd had it in my heart for some years to help a missionary couple in Tanzania to buy a car. Got $1,000, got $5,000. They needed $30,000. So about 5 years ago, I was there with them in ministry. And just like, sometimes my visions have been delayed. And then, thank God, the vision increased. So that when it was fulfilled, we did more for God than we would have done. Well, this time, it was in giving. I've been thinking for a few years about giving them $30,000. But I never had it. So all of a sudden, it changed. It became $50,000. So I preached for Dan in Dar es Salaam in January 2 years ago. And after lunch, I told him, look, Dan, I've had this in my heart. I never talked to him about it. I said, I've had this in my heart for several years, so I'm going home and I'm going to borrow $50,000 and I'm going to send it to you so you can get a brand new vehicle. We had to push him off. Now, I didn't do that because we had to push his car off that morning after church. It had been in my heart.
Yeah.
So I came home and I borrowed the $50,000, sent it to him. And when we went back later that year, I got to drive this brand new Ford Ranger pickup and went all the way across Tanzania to Lake Tanganyika and headed home. $50,000. I had a 5-year loan. 2 months ago, we paid it off 3 years early.
Wow.
You can't figure it out, but somebody came along and gave $12,000, and somebody else $10,000, somebody else $10,000, and we paid off month by month the rest of it. God's good. Little is much. Y'all want me to sing to you again, I think. Woo, just a little bit.
Yes.
I remember, I think it was 10 years ago, we were home and we were having a board meeting. And I was mentioning things that we were planning and mentioned that we needed $80,000. So one of them, and the board asked, you need $80,000, and we had 2 months before we're leaving again. Said, how much do you have? And I said, 2,000. And you know, it's like in that moment, in that very moment, 2 questions. How much do you need? 80,000. How much do you have? 2,000. It's click. That cloud the size of a man's hand.
Yeah.
Woo! We're in debt. All the bills were paid. And I had 2,000 toward that 80,000 goal. And we left the end of October and went back, and the 80,000 came in.
Yeah.
And they shipped 2 40-foot containers, the only ones we've ever had shipped, and they're over there. They're in place and roofed, and so our carpentry area is twice as big as it used to be. We don't have 20-foot containers. We got 40-foot containers.
Woo,
Well, I'll tell you what, it's nice. And since then, we've had a 10-year drought. You know what I've been singing? Little is much.
Yes. Yes.
Woo!
Hallelujah.
If you're where I've been, you can start singing.
Amen. Yeah.
Because God just keeps bringing it in. It just keeps happening. So I want to share some things that, and I want to tell you in advance about this, what could have been, might have been, should have been, or that should have been, has been.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I didn't go the way of the devil, but somebody, Sister Dawes, my pastor's mother-in-law, one night early on, I was here in church down there, in the old board wooden building, and everybody's down at the altar praying, and I'm just seated over there somewhere, that side, and she comes up to me and said, would you like to receive the Lord? I knelt and received the Lord.
Praise God.
I've shared this with Pastor in recent days. I didn't know much about anything. She lived in Oklahoma. She's just here. Went back to Oklahoma the next year. She was here. She came in my dad's store, and I remember her saying, I've been praying for you. And I thought, you live in Oklahoma. I hadn't caught on to these phrases like there's no distance in prayer. Well, praise God for Sister Dodge. She prayed for me to get saved. She prayed for me after I'm saved. So the devil didn't get me. He hunted. Well, how does he know who to hunt? He doesn't have any advanced knowledge. He's not like God. God knows everything from the beginning until the end. But the devil can guess pretty good. When he sees a guy like Joseph, because he's got used to the way God takes care of his people, he knew about Job. And so Joseph, here's a guy that just a young guy, just out there bringing in the grain. But he knows he had a dream. I don't like this. And then he had another dream, and the devil's shaking. I don't like this. You know, he doesn't know anything about the future of Joseph, but he knows that God's got a pattern.
Yeah.
And when God starts using somebody, things happen. Woo! You know what happened? I mean, oh boy, we gotta stir things up. You know, they talk about us as though we're haters, but we are the hated.
Yeah. Yeah.
In reality, I don't hate. You know, I was taught here years ago, God hates sin, but he loves the sinner.
Yeah.
So during the rebellion, I could sit down with rebels, invaders, and I could tell them the same thing. You know, God hates rebellion, but he loves you rebels.
Yeah.
They laughed when I called them rebels. Woo! One where he was on a patrol, and I was going one way and they were going the other. And as I got down about to cross the creek, he turned around and he said, hey, do y'all have glasses? You know, Stephanie has helped a lot of people with eyeglasses used. So I said, yes, we have them, but when the rebels came in, They stole our apparatus that could measure it, so you just have to put them on one at a time and see if it works. He said, "What did you say?" I knew what he was after. I said, when the rebels, when the liberators, they called themselves, when they came in, they stole our equipment. And he laughed. He said, "The white man's words makes me laugh." Well, isn't it amazing how accurate you can be and how honest you can be and still have favor?
Yeah.
Okay. The devil doesn't know what God's got ahead, and at this point, I don't either. I'm 76 years of age, but I'll tell you, God's still got some plans. And I heard a guy a few years back, he said, "The best of your life is the rest of your life."
Yeah.
Sounds good for me.
Yeah.
And what we're thinking, planning, will take some baby steps. And I'll tell you what, the greatest things we've ever done, and I'm not a great evangelist. Years ago, I was teaching the Bible in a couple different evangelists in Tanzania. We're in a little village called La Maiti, and the evangelist was preaching in the evening, but I'd teach the Bible session in the morning. You know, I don't know, some of us will grow up and we're called of God and we want to be a Billy Graham. I can do that, not you. Did you say 10 till or 10 after? I won't go long. But anyway, in that little village, all of a sudden, I felt content. I found my place. I'm not the evangelist. And people in the States, you know, in years gone by, when we have a lot of charismatics, they're always interested in the fivefold ministry, and they would ask, "What's your ministry?" They want me to say apostle or prophet or something, you know. And I say, "Helps." What? Helps. You won't find that one in Ephesians, but it's in 1 Corinthians.
Yeah.
And that's where I found my place. I'm helping your pastor right here. I hope I'm helping you.
Yeah. Amen.
I help when I go back. I'm not the director of the Bible school anymore. As soon as we landed last year, I was given 2 classes a day for 5 days a week. And preaching chapel once, and the pastor asked me to preach the first 2 weeks I was there. The regular services. I helped them.
Praise God.
I like helping with buildings. We've helped, and I say this like this because I don't build churches. It's their church, they should build it.
All right.
But I like to help people that are not as well off as I am.
Yeah.
So we've helped, I'm sure, over 100 churches through the years. Right there in Kalimie, where we live, I've helped with metal roofing over 30 churches. Baptist, Methodist, Free Methodist, the Pentecostals. You see, I'm in the Assemblies of God. Haven't been out one day in 62 years. Some people don't know that. They think I resigned or I was put out. But you taught at Rhema, yeah? And I kept my papers.
Amen.
My district has been kind to me. I haven't asked anything from them except to be in fellowship, and they've allowed it. You said, my superintendent said, if you do anything wrong now, I'm going to come down on you. Good.
Yeah.
Keep it up. When they had accusations against me in Kalimie in the Congo, said, let them search out. Go back to West Columbia, Texas. If they can find anything, then they can come back after me. Well, one time there was 8 accusations against me. Foolish stuff. Just dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But the government office searched it out, and then they told me the report was that they searched all this out, and there was no truth in any one of the accusations. I'll tell you what, you can keep yourself clean, you'll have a good credit score in a lot of ways. Oh, I got to hurry. Impossible. Yeah. You going back these days, what do? I do less. I want to live longer.
All right.
I don't try to put in a 40-hour week. We live on campus. We rented for 25 years, and you have to drive over to campus, drive back. Now we live right there in the center. Stephanie loves it. We're next door to Stephanie. And I walk across the road. They're building the church. I help them. I got a pickup. I did. 2 trailers. So I mean, I've hauled water and sand and cement and dirt and rocks and water. Right there, 300 meters from the Lake Tanganyika, 18% of the usable fresh water of the world.
Wow.
But it doesn't make it to my house.
All right.
We're in a developing situation in this world, in Africa. I can get 95 5-gallon buckets on that trailer. I've hauled water. You get tired? Oh, physically. But I know how to go to the house now. When I'm working with the guys over there, if I get a little bit tired, I just, see you later. I go over to the house and sit in the shade for a while, maybe drink me some orange juice or something. Then I go back when I feel like it. But I can preach and I can teach and I can help and I can counsel. I've tried to counsel some, It's disappointing that people won't admit. I've used this verse over and over and over and over. You hide your sin and you will not prosper. Confess it and forsake it and you'll have mercy. I tried to tell people, look, I'm not judgmental. This is what they're saying. This is why I ask you to sit here. No, I'd never do that. Okay. And then after they finish Bible college, they go back home and take a second wife. There must have been something true about the accusations. And all they had to do, they could have beat the system. But now they're under it. People that hide their sins. I think about that lady caught in the act of adultery. That means she's a married lady. Caught. Boy, how wonderful to be caught. Then you can break off. Some people not caught, so they go back and do it again.
All right.
They wiggle out of it, so they go back, continue the same thing. Someday it'll catch up with you.
Yeah.
But she was caught, and Jesus can say to her, go your way and sin no more. And that's all you need for God to say, look, I know what you've done, but just get out and go from here, from now. Well, I'll tell you what, we're still going, and I can tell you a lot of things we do. This last year and the year before, we helped on the church and building a guest house. I redid the whole dining hall of a 40 by 120 foot. We changed the roofing on top and the bed boards and the ceiling inside and the windows in the walls. Work on the roads. We have dirt roads, but all our roads, the public roads which we developed and allowed it to be public, the government's never touched it. I guess they know it. It's our road. So when they wanted me not to lock our gates at night, I've got the leverage. This is my road. At 9 o'clock p.m., the gates are locked. They're not unlocked until 5 a.m. Everybody has their own security. They build walls around their individual houses. Well, we've got our wall around 98 acres.
Wow.
So we work on the walls around the churches. We've helped, and we keep helping, Somebody comes and said, if I've got a $100 bill in my billfold, I can't do any more, but I can give you $100. I'll give him 10 sheets. And some of the buildings we've taken down to make space for future buildings. What was it, last year or two? We've helped roof at least a dozen churches in the villages with used metal. How would you like to have corrugated metal with holes all in it? If you don't have any, it's nice. laid a slab for more containers. We got 3 containers, got space for 3 more, making 6 total. And then this container that sat over here, you might have noticed it, you might not have noticed it, but it was over there, what, 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
Finally, in 2014, it was shipped. January of last year, we got it. A new generator, a new refrigerator for Shirley. Thank you. And I'll tell you, God just keeps helping us. So I want to say thank you this morning to all of you. This church, only this church, has supported us nonstop for 50 years. There was one other, but a few years ago, I've gotten several letters, and some this year, the economic downturn, so we're going to have to drop you. Well, so far God hasn't dropped us, but thank you, Gulf Coast Christian Center, from 1966 until 2016.
Wow.
You've been supporting us every and Stephanie has been over there, her as well. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor.